Hey everyone, Samantha here. Welcome to another episode of Trans IRL. It's nice to be back at the helm today, especially after last week where the spouses took control of the show. And if you missed it, if you didn't get to watch the spouses take episode last week, I do recommend you go check it out on our page. It's saved on our YouTube page along with all of our other past episodes. So go take a watch. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. In addition, our Instagram page over at TransIRL, if you haven't had a chance to go over there yet, please go ahead and follow us there. And you'll get all the latest updates on our shows, as well as notifications when we do bonus episodes, like we ended up doing on Tuesday nights. So those bonus episodes are kind of a fun thing that Addison and I are trying out. We want to have viewer participation in there, and we'd like to have people call in and join us on those days as well. So speaking of Addison, let's get her on here. Hi, Addison.
Hey, Samantha. So I'm here in our new control room, and we finally more or less got it set up on Tuesday. And in our bonus show, gave everyone a preview of the new digs. And today I want to show you a little more. Welcome to TransIRL's new home, located in my company's office in Santa Monica, California. It's a big step up from our previous setup, a desk with 2 computers and 3 monitors. Our new control room features a state-of-the-art live streaming setup powered by vMix. It allows us to pull in guests using live remotes, playback video clips, overlay graphics, mix audio, and more. There's also a new editing and graphics workstation, which is still being set up. All the production computers are centrally located in a server rack and connected to patch panels, so any computer can be routed to any monitor. We also have a couch where we're hoping to do live interviews in person eventually. And then there's our wall of Polaroids, so we don't forget all the good times in this place. It's a live look, excuse me, this is a live look from our control room camera. And super excited about that and all the possibilities here in the new TransIRL studio and control room. Samantha, I'll send it back to you.
Well done, Addison. So Addison will be in our control room tonight, as always, checking our YouTube live stream chat. I'll actually be monitoring our Facebook live stream chat because we're streaming there as well tonight for the first time. And if we get any questions for our guests, we'll make sure to get those in by the end of the episode here. So let's get into our topic here for today. Last week, we explored how transitioning affects relationships with people we choose to be in relationships with. But with a transgender individual as your own son or daughter. And tonight we have 2 wonderful guests, both parents of wonderful children who are transgender. And at this point, I'd like to welcome Erin Dees and Angela Day. Hi, everyone.
Hello, how you doing?
Good.
How you doing, Sam?
Hi, Erin. Hi, Angela. So before we go into questions or anything like that, I'd like to give you both an opportunity to just talk a little bit about yourselves, about your families, and introduce yourself to everyone watching here. And we'll go ahead and start with Erin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erin. I am an engineer. I'm a wife, and most importantly for tonight, a mother of 3 beautiful children. Just to be a bit extra, I am, in chronological order, a stepmother, a biological mother, and an adoptive mother. So here's how that happened. In 2005, I met Lynn, the woman who would become my wife. And at the time, she had this fiery little 4.5-year-old named Avalon, who is now 18, which blows my mind. That means I've been in 3/4 of her life. So Lynn and I were dating. We had a very bikey courtship. We were always taking bikes and trains to get to each other's places. And if there's Lynn and Avalon together, and we got serious, fell in love, got married, as one does. And this is before I had really even acknowledged to myself that I was transgender, that I had just sat on these feelings. So I was still presenting male. We got married the first time around, thinking at the time we were man and wife. We conceived a child, and that's our youngest. He was born in 2007. So fast forward to 2016, there's me and Lynn and our youngest one. Fast forward to 2016, and Avalon's best friend, Damien, came to live with us. And he was using a different name and pronouns at the time, but he needed a place to live. And a few months after he got settled and got comfortable, he trusted us with this beautiful information that he's a boy. So he was actually the first one in the family to come out. And then a year later, I finally started putting a name to these 35 years of feelings that I had been trying to sit on. And I came out to my family slowly. And finally, that same night that I told them, well, I'm still exploring this, but I know I'm not a boy. Our youngest said, yeah, actually, I'm not a girl, so I can empathize. And then it took him about 9 months to get from there to, hey, moms, I'm a boy. So that is the story of our little rainbow family. There's him after his first boy haircut, before he was ever using he, him pronouns or realizing this about himself.
Wonderful. Thanks, Erin. And I'd like to hand it over to Angela to tell a little bit about her story.
Okay. So my name is Angela, and my daughter's name is Lana, and she's 17. She is a junior at the school that I happen to work at. I'm the HR director at the school. She's been at the school since kindergarten. A lot of her friends she has had since kindergarten. And ever since I could remember, you would always see Lana with a princess in her hand. Every picture that I still have up, she has a little princess in her hand, like the little dress is hanging out of it. I remember her first concert was in 4th grade. We went to go see Hannah Montana. When we went to Disney World, I remember just walking around Disney World, and I think she was 4 or 5, and we were walking by the costume shop, and she was like, I want that Jasmine outfit. She's like, that's what I want. That's what I want. And so we were like, okay, all right, if that's what you want, that's what you get. It was common knowledge among my family that if you got anything for Lana for Christmas, this was long before she came out to us, that these are the princesses she liked. She loved Hannah Montana. These are the Barbies she liked. And everyone always embraced that about her. And everyone jumped on board, and they, always loved her. And it's just her and I in our house. So it's 2 girls, 1 bathroom. That's very fun. But about 2 years ago is when she came out to me and her father. And without getting too much into it, because I know we will, I thought it was great. I was happy that she knew who she was, and she was comfortable enough to tell me, and I loved her and supported her ever since, and we are very close. And when she was when she was little, she always gravitated towards, like, she had tons of girlfriends, tons of boyfriends, but tons of girlfriends. And still to this day, she has, I would say, 90% of the same friends who have loved and supported her and always been there for her. So we've been very lucky.
Great. Thank you both for sharing those stories there. And Angela, you touched on it a little bit, so let's go deeper into that topic, right? Mm-hmm. For a lot of transgender individuals, coming out is one of the hardest parts of this journey. I think more difficult we have to our very close family members. The both of you, can you share that experience was like when your child finally did come out to you? And let's go ahead and start with Erin.
All right, so I'll tell Damien's story first. He had been in certain groups of friends using a male name and he, him pronouns for, I think, well, to our knowledge, at least months beforehand. That's him before. And, we didn't press him on it. We figured we didn't necessarily make the leap that meant he was trans. But once he was comfortable living with us and felt safe, he sat down with Lynn and said, I want you to help me pick a boy name. And they brainstormed together and they came up with Damien. He liked that. And she said, well, how much do you want to be Damien? And he said, all the time. So that's his story. As far as our youngest, about 3 weeks after I started questioning my gender and not knowing where I was going to fall on that spectrum between boy and girl, but the whole family had just watched the Bill Nye episode about sex and gender. Any model that you can get across in a half-hour show is going to be a little vague and imperfect, but it was a decent start. And afterwards, we're sitting at the kitchen table, passing around silly putty and talking about where we fall on those spectra. So, that was how I told my kids. I said, well, I was assigned male at birth, but my gender is not boy. I'm somewhere in between, probably, I think so. Maybe we'll figure it out. And when it got around to our youngest, he said, well, I was assigned female, but I think I might be gender fluid, somewhere in between. And it turned out we reconstructed this timeline later. He had been having sort of gender feelings for months, long before I had figured this out or spoken a word to anyone. And 9 months later, we could tell something was weighing on him, so much so that it was taking a toll on his physical health. And you're terrified as a mother for your baby when they're suffering. And Lynn sat him down and said, "What's weighing on you? What is this?" And that's when he told her that he's a boy. And the sense of relief was immediate once we switched to he/him pronouns. He'd been using his new name for a while. There's a fun story about how he chose that if there's time later. But just seeing him laughing and playing again with other kids almost immediately, not that it's always sunshine and roses, but it was a huge relief. In retrospect, we were not shocked. Even going back to toddlerhood, he hated anything sort of feminine coded. He very grudgingly wore dresses. We hadn't meant anything because, of course, you can be a girl in like more traditionally masculine coded clothing. So, we didn't sweat it. But he would specifically request haircut short like a boy. So, of course, in retrospect, we're like, So yeah, that's how both of our boys came out to us.
And how old was he that night when he finally, came out officially to Lynn?
He was. You're talking about our youngest?
Yeah.
He was 10.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Erin. And Angela?
So Lana has always, ever since a tiny girl, she has always loved to go for car rides. She always did. She loved car rides. I did find that car rides was when she opened up most and she would talk the most. She just loved car rides. I always tried to make car rides like our special time. And it was July of 2017. And I remember 2 weeks prior, well, let me say this. I always knew that Lana was going to be within the LGBTQ family. I always knew she was going to be in the rainbow. I had a feeling. I kind of thought I knew what she was going to tell me one day. But so one night we were watching television and there was this show that came on. I think it was called The Trans List, and we watched it. And I would just remember like asking her questions, and she knew all the questions, and she was so intent on it. And I didn't really think anything. And then about a week later, she asked me at 10 o'clock at night, which was not uncommon. We went sometimes at midnight for a ride, to go for a ride. And I thought, sure, okay, let's go, And so we were going for a ride, and I still laugh at this. We were sitting in front of a drugstore at a red light, waiting for the red light to change. And the light changes, and she's like, "Mom, I have to tell you something." And I thought this was going to be the moment for something else. And she said, "I'm trans." And I just looked at her and I smiled, and it was like everything all of her life made sense to me. Everything just made sense. And right then and there, I told her, I said, "I know, and I love you." And I said, "Let's go home now." I said, "Let's go home and want to drive and have this conversation while we're driving." But it's kind of crazy because it was kind of like her whole life, just fast forward. And I was like, yes, that makes total sense. Like, I get it. Okay, all right, well, let's go and talk. And she let me ask her questions. And I asked her, how long have you known? Were you, when did you realize? And it was a very good talk. It was a really good talk that we had that night. So that's how she came out.
And it's so nice to hear that you had such a positive reaction from the very beginning. I think a lot of people are always very afraid of that initial reaction when you come out to somebody. You're never quite sure what to expect there. But it's so heartwarming to hear that you were right there. You were ready to support her from the get-go. And it sounds like that first night you had a really good conversation with her. So, I mean, that's the first night. Then you go to bed. Then you wake up the next morning, and you have to process this. You have to process this news. So, how would you describe your reaction at that point when you knew that, okay, I now know this about her and we have to move forward? So what was that reaction like for you? And also at that time, how much did you know about being transgender? And I'll let Angela keep going here.
So let me say this, because one thing that Lana did tell me was, she said, Mom, be honest, be honest about our conversation when we got home. And so we got home. We actually had a long talk all night long. We're really good at long talks all night long. And I do remember, and I told her this, and I started crying. And I told her for a hot minute, and it really was, I promise you, it was not for very long. It was for maybe 30 minutes. I cried because I told her that, number one, I was sad that she had felt like this for so long, and it took her so long to tell me. But also, and I talked to Erin last night a little bit, and she worded it better. I had to process my feelings. I had to process, and I knew Lana wasn't going to change. I knew Lana was always Lana. So I do have to say that I did cry, and I was sad, but not sad for reasons that people would think. And so I'm not lying when I say this. The next day was July 4th. So I started doing research online, thinking about trying to find out whatever I could find out about maybe doctors who were local. Tried searching doctors, and we have something local. It's called Louisiana Trans Advocates, and they have like a trans friendly list of any kind of provider you could think of. I went on there, had a list of doctors. I think I texted her counselor, because she'd been going to that counselor for a couple of years, and I told her counselor that I knew, and I really wanted to talk to him about finding her a trans friendly doctor, because it made sense to me. I knew who she was. I knew. And I still had a lot to learn, and I have learned a lot since then. I did a lot of research, a lot of meetings, a lot of reaching out to people on Instagram. I still reach out to people all the time to give me advice or tell me if I'm saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. I'm still learning every single day. So
I think that's a big part of it, right? It's something you don't have to know everything about immediately, right? We sort of take it one day at a time. And I think that's a great way of looking at it there. So I'd like to turn it back over to Erin and ask you a similar question. Your initial reactions when you found out about Damien and your youngest, and also how much you knew about being trans at that point in time.
Sure. When Damien came out, I had read a lot on people's transitions at the time, thinking I was an outsider, wishing I could do that. So all I knew was that it made people happier. And so when he came out, the way I found out was after he and Lynn had this conversation, she texted and said, "Congratulations, you have a boy." And it was exciting. It's like a rebirth almost. So my heart leapt. It was a very exciting time. And by the time our youngest came out, I had already been finally acknowledged who I was and been in transition for a good month or so. And so I knew a little bit more about being trans, certainly about the guidelines that we have to meet as trans adults in order to gain access to various types of transgender healthcare. So, and I certainly could relate to feelings of dysphoria But that doesn't mean I know everything, right? He is a child. The guidelines for children are very different, and as you would expect and hope, more stringent. And it's different for trans boys than it is for trans women. And it is different to come out in youth versus adulthood. So certain things were relatable, but a lot of stuff I had to learn all over again for how it related to especially our youngest, but really both of them.
So let's keep going through that, the education process, Erin. How did you really dive into supporting especially your youngest at this point, right? The different requirements that were in place there.
Sure. Well, I had bookmarked the WPATH standard of care. That's sort of the common document that most doctors in the US and hopefully worldwide will use. And there's a series of guidelines that's laid out that you have to meet these criteria, including for adults and children. So we could talk about the 3 words that end in istant, right? There's consistent, insistent, and persistent. This child's dysphoria, stay constant and not waver. Is it strong and intense feeling, and does it last over time? And they have to meet a number of different sort of check boxes on a list. Do they wish they were a different gender? Do they wish their body were that of a different gender? Do they wish to be rid of characteristics of their body, and so forth? And children have to meet more of those. So I had to go read up on all these guidelines and learn them all over again. And then we both had to advocate for him with the team of professionals that he's working with. So yeah, in a sense, it was learning everything all over again from square one, but just lots of reading and talking to social workers and therapists and doctors and so forth.
Right. And those are in place to protect, everyone involved, right? They're in place to protect the person who's looking to transition. The WPATH guidelines are there to ensure that as individuals go forward with the transition, whether they're youth or adults, that they have seen therapists, that they have seen doctors, that this is being done in a way that's being monitored and tracked. And it's a lot of work. There's no going out and just requesting hormones. It really doesn't work that way, especially for children. There is a very significant process that needs to happen here before that can even be tabled. So I think that's important, and I'm glad you covered that, Erin. Thank you. So I'd like to turn it back to Angela here. You talked a little bit about that initial research you were doing, looking for doctors and reaching out to her therapist. And I'm just kind of curious what those early steps look like in the process for her.
So she had been going to the same therapist for at least, I think, a little over a year and a half. And we found out also that she had come out to her therapist and her grandmother at the time she was really close to, about a year prior. So it took her about a year to come out to us. So he had that documentation in her file. So when he, told us about a doctor to go see, we went to go see this doctor who was actually at the time one of the only doctors for transgender individuals in the city. And the first meeting, we just went and we met with the doctor and we talked with the doctor. And of course, the doctor told us about the guidelines. I did not know about all the guidelines, and sent us to a psychologist and other doctors to meet with them and talk to them and get reports written. And I will say this, when we met with one of her doctors and I was reading something later on, I was reading like a report or something, and one of the things that struck me the most, that I would always point out to every doctor we met after that, was someone had asked her, when was your first feeling of feeling this? And she said that when she was in, I think it was first or second grade, she went to PE, and at that time that all the boys had went to the side to go play football, and they were playing shirts and skins, and she got picked to play on the skins team. And she said, little girls don't play with their shirt. Don't play with shirts, taking off their shirts. And she said she knew back then that something, and when I read that, I knew I had to keep moving forward. And we were very lucky that we found doctors who believed in us and believed her and believed in who she was. I can't really say that I had a bad experience or had a hard time, because I literally went straight to the source and went and found the one doctor who and he was number one on this list. And he's a great doctor, and he always has the answer for us. If we need to see another doctor or this doctor or that doctor or another counselor, he has the answers, and he helps us, and he always sends us to someone who is trans friendly, always.
That's great. I know a big concern with trans healthcare in general is finding doctors and medical professionals who will work with us and assist us in our journeys. And not everyone's so lucky. I know that, even myself, I've had a negative experience trying to go to an endocrinologist to assist me with my transition. And I feel like if you were to, talk to most trans individuals, you'll find people that ran into issues getting medical care right the first time. So it's great that you had that support there. And, that's another really helpful thing about the online community as well, where we can sort of work together to share information about medical providers that are helping trans individuals and are working with us as opposed to working against us. So I'm glad that you were able to locate someone there that can help you and your daughter. And I'm sure if you haven't already, you'll probably pass that name on to somebody else very soon. That's kind of just how it works right now.
Yes.
So we've talked a little bit about the medical side, about the education side. Let's talk a little bit more about reactions and family. And I think let's talk about family first. I'll address this to Erin. So how did your family take your two boys coming out?
Well, first of all, everybody under the roof was pretty supportive, right? With 3 of us being trans and all 5 of us being in the LGBTQIA rainbow somewhere. That was pretty much a no-brainer. In fact, the flip side of that, briefly, when I came out to my kids, their instant answer was, cool, what are your pronouns? They didn't even blink. So it was a similar kind of just like, all right, excellent. As far as the rest of our family, on the whole, they've been very supportive. There are a couple of family members who want to overanalyze everything about what our children's plans, especially the youngest, what his plans are for his transition, and, oh, is it safe, and is that the right thing to do for him? And it takes a little reassuring to say, trust us, we've researched this. We're not going to let him go forward with anything that isn't safe or healthy for him. But it's just a little funny to get all those questions. And then extended family has been pretty amazing. There's an entire wing of the family that is more distant that we only get to see at family reunions and road trips and things. And they've been some of the most amazing. I wonder if it's just they never see us, and so it's easy to make the pronoun switch. So overall, pretty good. There were 1 or 2 people who've had difficulty with names or pronouns.
Yeah, that's not bad percentages right there. Same question to you, Angela.
So, of course, when I told my sisters, they weren't surprised. They were like, well, we knew that already, Angela, and I would say, like Erin, on a whole, almost everyone has been really supportive. We've had 1 or 2 people who, who are like, are you sure? Is she sure? Are you sure? And, I always say, you don't live under our roof. I'm doing what's right by my daughter. Believe me, I'm doing what's right. I trust her, and I trust what she's saying. And I see that was the one main thing that everybody says is the moment that she was able to speak her truth and be who she was, they couldn't believe how much she shined, how happy she was, how funny she was, how just the smile that glows. And that's when a lot of my friends and family they tell me, they're like, yep, she is who she's supposed to be. She never laughed and smiled and shined like she shines now. And even when I met my current girlfriend, it was shortly after my daughter came out to me. That was one of the first things I told her. And she was like, okay, all right. I told her about our history and our past, and she was like, okay, all right, let's go. So we've been very lucky on the whole that we've had a lot of positive experience. We always joke that if we get a negative reaction, it really shakes our core because we're not used to it. And we'll always say, well, one negative reaction against 13,000 positives. Okay, all right, let's chill out. That's not bad.
So you mentioned that Lena has been at the same school since kindergarten, right?
Yes, since kindergarten, and a lot of the like I would say a majority of her friends are her same friends, and it is kind of funny because I think when she came out to her friends, I want to say her best friend, who has always been her best friend since kindergarten. Um, it I did say she waited to he was the very last person that she told, and I couldn't understand. I was like, why won't you tell him? Like, he's your best friend. He's going to love you no matter what. I know he will. Y'all have been best friends for 10 years, 11 years. And when she told him, he was like, okay, you're still the same person. And when I tell you, he's probably all of her friends support her. He is probably her biggest supporter. And if someone makes a mistake, he is the first person to step up and say, you're wrong. And it makes me laugh because I do believe that they will be best friends until the end of time. Nothing will change that.
And Erin, same question for you, for your youngest who's still in school. What was their experience like coming out in the classroom?
So let's see. He came to realize he was a boy in the middle of fourth grade, and we told his teacher. She immediately made the switch. All of his notes and records and so forth. And he told his class. They're fourth graders. They're not perfect people, and it's a lot to ask to say always get this right 100% of the time. So they don't, and especially not at first. But Angela, just like you said with Lana, he's got staunch defenders. He's got close friends who will get up in other people's faces and say it's he, him, it's this name, and it's really nice to see that. I can certainly empathize with his wanting to make a clean break and have everybody get it right, but it's tough.
So, I mean, it sounds overall like they really had good experiences with family and schools, which is fantastic, and I hope shows the change or the changes that are starting to happen in the public eye when it comes to transgender issues. I think back to when I was in school, and being trans was not something that was discussed anywhere outside of, talk shows on television and things like that. When I was in high school, even I didn't know anyone who was openly gay at that point. Even just being openly gay would have been enough to put you in a very dangerous situation, let alone being trans. So when I hear these stories about youth that are going to school and they're seeing the support from their classmates and they have the support from the teachers in the schools, that is incredible to me. And I hope that most people have that experience, but I know that there are still some people out there that do experience discrimination and do have issues with schools as well. So progress is progress, but there's still a long way to go. And I do want to talk about that a little bit as well. I know that both of your experiences and your children's experiences have been largely positive, but I did want to talk about any of those negative encounters that really stick out to you or stand out in your memory. And I'll start with Erin.
There's one in recent memory that stands out. I'm still angry about it. We were at the mall Christmas shopping, And we stopped at the food court to get some snacks, and he went to the bathroom. And of course, he goes to the right bathroom. You know, Tyler looks like any other boy. Like, of course, he should use the boys' room. And as he was leaving the bathroom or had just left, this random middle-aged man said, "Oh, did you go in the wrong bathroom, honey?" And he said, "No, I'm a boy." And this person like gives him the up and down and like as if to doubt him, but I'm just angry about it because it creeps me out. Just like sizing up a child like that is such predatory, awful, creepy behavior. I spent the rest of that shopping trip looking for this guy based on his description. We were going to have some words, and I'm sad that I did not find him and get all mama bear.
All right. And the same question to Angela.
So we haven't one-on-one encountered anything like that. I know in the beginning, you know, I would walk a few steps behind her, and I felt like there were certain people who would stare, and I would stare them down, and I would almost say, "Do you have a problem? Like, is something wrong? Is what she doing affecting you? It doesn't affect you, so just keep walking, you know, keep going." And I do find that even if someone isn't staring at her, I do scan the room, and I think that's the mom in me. I think sometimes she gets upset with me. She'll say, "Were they staring?" And I'm like, "No, it's the mom in me. I want to protect you." We had not had any kind of, we are very lucky that we've not had any kinds of bad experiences. We do have someone who is close to us who over the holidays, we only see this person once a year, twice a year maybe, and they did not know about Lana socially transitioning over the summer. She just socially transitioned over the summer, and we were going to a holiday at their house, and I wanted them to know that this is what it was, and her name was Lana, and her pronouns were she and her, and it got back to me that this person did not agree with our family's choice, and like it's a choice, but did not agree with our family, and they would be civil to us, but they didn't really want to talk to us. So it was hard. It was really hard. It made me sad, and not. It made me sad that it's a reminder of people out there sometimes. And we did not go to that holiday. And I don't even think we really thought about it again after that. We were just like, okay, we're not going to go. I always told her I'd have her back. And I told her, even if that meant family, I got your back.
That's amazing. I love the mama bear mentality, right? The supportive parents. And whether it's mama bear, papa bear for the supportive fathers out there as well. It's incredible to me to imagine a parent, and you know, I'm a parent as well. I have 4 boys. I could never imagine turning my back on a child simply because they wanted to be themselves. And I know this process can be hard. I know it's difficult to understand, especially if you're not familiar with, you know, being transgender, you're not, you know, immersed in that culture. But to turn your back on a child seems unbelievable to me. I can't imagine ever being in that situation where the love I have for my kids wouldn't overcome any issue that they were dealing with. And it's great to see the two of you be so supportive and so protective of your kids. All right, so kind of the two of you, what was surprising during this for? And let's start with Erin.
Well, the fact that they had come out was surprising. Honestly, it caught us by surprise, even though there were all these hints in retrospect. Another thing is just this intense sense of excitement and relief, respectively, at their coming out. And it was just such a non-event within the family. It was not really big news internally. And I think that was the big surprise. It was business as usual. We're just getting to be who we are more authentically, more fully. That's the biggest surprise. And I think the second might be that more distant wing of the family that I talked about being so amazingly supportive, they're a little more conservative, and we didn't know how this was going to go. And for the most part, they've been pretty great about it.
Great. And for you, Angela?
I think what the most surprising is to me is the change in personality in her afterwards. Before she pretty much kept to herself, and she did not laugh much. She was, I think this was the most surprising thing to me. She never was an affectionate person. She hated me to touch her, to give her hugs, to give her kisses. And and afterwards, she probably thinks I'm against affection because she hugs me and kisses me, and she'll stop in my office pretty often during the day. Hey, Mom, just want to tell you I love you. Just want to see how your day's going. She never did that before. It's garnered a relationship that we have that is so natural. We're very close now. We have a relationship that I could only have ever dreamed of having.
It's so wonderful. I mean, isn't it amazing how someone can bloom when they're allowed to actually be themselves? It's a beautiful thing. And Erin, I'd like to ask something similar for your boys. You know, how have they changed through this process?
Sure. Well, Tyler, I don't know, I just said his name on air. Oops, sorry. Our youngest, immediately upon coming out, was just visibly like more excited, more outgoing, playing with his friends, and chasing around little kids at Bring Your Kids to Work Day, which happened to be the next day. So he's still somewhat introverted. He didn't suddenly become an extrovert, but just blossoming a little bit, really coming into his own. And he's certainly like much more affectionate. He says trans people give the best hugs. So he loves just like connecting with other trans kids. And he's really super social with them. It's like they've got this shortcut. They can immediately like just jump right into a very close friendship. And with Damien, it's been the biggest sort of change with him was just this relief and readiness for the future. There wasn't a big giant bombshell of a surprise because we didn't parent him from day one. We didn't have him under our roof for quite as long. So it wasn't as surprising as it was just new.
So there's going to be a lot of parents watching this out there that are in similar situations to the both of you. What would you say to a parent that is facing the same type of transition in their own lives? And let's start with Angela.
So the first thing I want to say is you have to be there for your child. It took a lot for them to come out to you. It took a lot. A lot of times I tell people sometimes it's to them, and it's true. It isn't just to them. It's life or death. It took a lot. And so you have to be a parent. You have to put your feelings on the side, and you have to be there for them. You can process your emotions later. You have to be there for them. But I think most is you have to educate yourself, but you have to be the biggest thing is you have to be there for them when they're not around. You can't be there for them, but then go out into the world and not acknowledge what they just told you. It goes back to this thing I think it was about character. You know, character is what you do when people aren't around. Well, you still have to be that parent when you have to educate other people. We're constantly educating people. I say this all the time. She did not just come out in July of 2017. She comes out every day. We come out with every new doctor. But you just have to prepare yourself and be there for your child. You have to be there for them. They love you. You love them. You have to be there for them.
All right, Erin.
That's absolutely a great sentiment, Angela. Like we have to show up That's number one, right? Show up for our kids. The thing that I want to say is that change is hard. Um, and you may feel like you are losing a son or a daughter. You're not, but it can feel that way. And just like spouses of trans people may sometimes feel like they're losing a husband or a wife until they kind of wrap their heads around it. It's okay to feel those feelings. That sense of loss is you and your heart processing that change. But your kid is not your therapist. Like you need to find a healthy way to express those feelings and process them. Excuse me. It's not about telling your kids, wow, this is really hard for me, right? It can be hard for you and that's okay, but find your tribe. Find fellow parents of trans kids. Find a support group in your city. And if you don't have one, look at the bottom of your screen when I'm speaking or when Angela's speaking, and find us on Instagram and come talk to us and say, just let me vent for a little while. We'll listen. We're good at this, at listening and processing feelings with people. So that's my other big recommendation is care for yourself. Getting the therapy, counseling, if you wish, which I recommend, and getting your tribe of fellow parents of trans kids to support you.
Awesome answers from both of you. Thank you both so much. We are going to do things a little bit different here than we normally do. Both of our guests expressed to me that they wanted to ask each other questions because it's not every day that you do find someone who's been in the same situation as you when you're raising a trans kid. So I do want to let Erin go ahead and of Angela.
Okay, Angela, I've got one question for you, and it's kind of about being a role model. Given that your daughter came to you and said, guess what, I'm a daughter, what's it been like to be a role model of motherhood, of femininity, of womanhood for her?
It has been pretty amazing. Now, I am a role model to her, but a lot of times when it comes to fashion and makeup, as you know, she's a role model to me. It is fun sometimes, like teaching her things. She's like, "Oh, wait, Mom, girl, you don't do that." And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Oh my goodness," but it's very nice. It makes me look back on my relationships with girls in my family and all my sisters, and besides just being her mom and us being close and us having girl talk and us sitting up all night and us, I love when she gets in the car and she's talking about just her day, or let's go to Sephora, Mom. Can we go to Sephora? Let's walk around Sephora. And even though I get really aggravated because we go to Sephora 3 or 4 times a week and we're shopping, I wouldn't trade it. I love seeing what she sees. I love watching her grow. I love seeing her sense of style. As much as I complain, she takes forever to do her hair and makeup. I love seeing her do it. I love being her mom, and I love being there for her, and I love seeing her grow into the beautiful girl that she's growing into. It's I love being her mom.
I love that that's brought y'all closer together.
Yes.
Your questions for Erin.
I had yeah. So I'm gonna change my question a little bit, but we kind of touched on this before. But Erin, do you find that it was easier for you to understand what your children were going through, especially when like they have dysphoric episodes or the dysphoria just I always say rears its ugly head? Was it easier for you to understand that? Because I do feel like I lack in that department. I feel bad that I can't help her when she is going through those things.
I don't think a cisgender parent is any worse at supporting a trans child than a trans parent. Like, sure, we've got a few things in common. I know what the word dysphoria means to me and what the experience is like for me. But any parent who can care for their child and see that they're suffering or see that something's wrong um, can build that arsenal of techniques to help deal with it. And you and I were talking a little bit about dysphoria on the phone last night, and like what to do when they're having a bad moment, when it just seems to come out of nowhere. And, we both discovered there's no single thing that works every time. Sometimes it's going out for a drive and just talking, taking turns choosing the next song on the music streaming service. Sometimes it's going out for a walk, playing a video game together, finding something that makes a child feel more masculine or more feminine. And I think any parent can do those things. So I do feel like I can relate to my kids about some things related to dysphoria. I don't think that makes me any better at it. I just have a shortcut to some of the words.
All right, go ahead, Angela, with your second question.
So my second question was, how do you, well, let me ask this one. Do you go to any support groups? Like, are there any groups in your area that you go to? Because locally here, I honestly can't find any. Let me just say, that's why I started this page, was to meet other parents, other trans people, other trans kids, because I even said I was going to start a group. I was like, I'm going to start my own parent group. So do you go to any groups as a parent?
We do. There is a really good trans youth support group, set of support groups in town called Transactive. And on the brochure, it says that they're for trans youth, but really it's kind of a stealth way to get the parents in there too. And so every other Saturday, we show up and the kids get to go to different locations by age group, the younger kids, the preteens, and the teenagers. But also the parents are invited / heavily encouraged to stick around for the parent support group. And we've had a couple dozen people in there sometimes, or at least certainly close to 20. And it's been really valuable to hear those stories and for people to share sort of coping techniques and say, yeah, I've been there too. Here's how we dealt with it.
All right. Any other questions between the two of you before we go on to our next section here?
I'm good.
None from me.
We're good. All right. We're going to go to our viewer submitted questions now. And the first question we have here is, what is your favorite thing about being a parent? So let's start with Angela.
So I have a teenage daughter that we get to that I get to watch her grow. I get to witness things, and I always tell her, oh, when I was in high school, I love that. Junior prom is coming up, so we get to go shopping for a prom dress. We had homecoming. We got to shop for homecoming dress. I enjoy being her mom and doing the things that moms do and going to get iced coffees and being a role model for her. I enjoy bringing her to the mall, going out to eat, exercising. We love to exercise, and I like to just be with her. I enjoy spending time with her. She's very funny. She's one of the funniest people that I know. She cracks me up on a daily basis.
All right. Erin?
Yeah, my kids are also funny as hell. I think my favorite thing is seeing them build a new skill. All three of my kids are artists, and it's been amazing watching their art style evolve and get more and more sophisticated and individual over the years. And like our youngest does animations online. Damien does a lot of digital art. Like all three of them are constantly in their sketchbooks. And one of the other favorite things I have about being a parent is just spending time together. We used to go on, Damien's grown now, right? So he lives outside of the house. But when it was all three kids under the roof, we'd all go out for coffee. And it was more about taking turns picking the music and the talking that happened in the car on the way. And it was just an excuse to spend time together. And that's certainly what I'm going to remember most intensely and fondly as my kids all become these amazing little adults.
All right. So was it difficult for you to make that change from son to daughter or daughter to son? And let's go ahead and start with Aaron.
Switching initially, so switching for Damien was easier because he'd only been living with us for a little while. Again, we didn't have a years-long history of using mom voice with him, right? With our youngest, it was easy to make the switch when things were cool, but then if we're irritated, because we're moms and we get irritated sometimes, if you didn't clean up your room or whatever, the old name would slip out in mom voice. Old name, and that was like not awesome. It's not an awesome experience for him. Or if an old pronoun slipped up. And we didn't do it too much, but I remember one time I accidentally either dead named or misgendered him. And I was like, oh shoot. And I spontaneously just reached in my pocket, pulled out $1 and handed it to him, like, here you go. And it diffused that fraught nature of that situation and injected a little bit of humor. So that just became our thing on those rare times when I would get a name or a pronoun wrong. I'd give him $1. And I have to say, I got way better at gendering him correctly at all times once that started. I think I only had to give him $6 over a period of, months.
That's a pretty good trick there. I like that. All right. So the same question for you, Angela.
The same as Aaron. I had some slip ups, and in the beginning, not so much anymore. She always tells me, "Mom, you never mess up. You never mess up." It was for a long time. My counselor that I go to told me sometimes when you get angry, old habits come up. I will say Lana and I were talking this morning. She and I were talking this morning, and I told her that, I think I was fussing at her the other day for something, and it was habit to just say, Lana. And I said, I was actually like, I didn't want to brag about that, but I was like, oh my God, that was a habit. Like, I loved it. I was so happy. When slip-ups do happen, of course, I feel terrible. I wish I would have known about the $1 thing, but I think with Lana, it would have been iced coffees, and it probably would have only happened once after I bought her a $5 iced coffee, and it would have never happened again. But it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard. And I was telling Erin this before quickly that when Lana first came out, she said, I don't want to change the name right now. I don't want to change pronouns. But it never failed. It was always on a Friday night, like a couple months into it. Okay, Mom, at midnight tonight, you can no longer say this name. You can no longer use those pronouns. And so it was always like, I have 3 hours left. And I think maybe sometimes that was good. And the next day I would start off, and that was it. And it really, she's an easy child to parent.
Well, this next question a little bit earlier, but I want to just go ahead and go through it again here. How well do you understand your child's dysphoria, and how do you help them when they're feeling dysphoric? And Angela, I'll let you keep going here.
Okay, so I do a lot of research on dysphoria. And I do say that there are times I don't understand it. It isn't that I don't understand it. I don't know how she's feeling, and I never will. I never try to act like I will understand it. I ask her all the time, what can I do? What can I do? Because I'm her mom. I want to make her feel better. I want to make her happy. And it took me a long time. It took me a very long time, and many arguments where she would tell me, you have to let me just feel my emotions. You have to let me go through them. You can't fix it, Mom. Just don't let me unpack a suitcase and live there. And so took me a long time to learn that, because the moment I could tell. I could tell when I wake up in the mornings. I was like, what's wrong? Nothing. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I did a lot of research, and I asked her about it. And I think I understand it more, but I'll never truly understand it. I do try to let her be. It kills me. but I do try to let her be. But like if she says, just give me an hour and 30 minutes, I set my phone an hour and 30 minutes. That alarm goes off. I'm like, okay, all right, I gave you an hour, 30 minutes. Come on, get up. Let's smile. Let's go do something. Let's go do something. So, and I'll research it all the time, and I'll reach out to people on my page. Like I'll ask them questions like, can you explain this to me? Can you help me understand this? What can I do? I think, Samantha, like this is kind of how I came to be on the show. I messaged you because I just did not know what to do. I did not know how to approach it one day with her.
Well, I'm glad I could help you out there, at least give you a little bit of insight. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the online community is there's a lot of people out there who are willing to offer that advice and help. So I'm glad I could help.
Yes, thank you.
And Erin, you're in a unique situation here as somebody who's experienced dysphoria. You can relate a little bit closer to what your sons are going through, but at the same time, their experience is different. So I am curious about those different aspects of dysphoria that you see in your boys versus what you've experienced personally.
Yeah, I certainly know what my dysphoria feels like. That doesn't mean I can know what theirs feels like. And so it is kind of, like I said earlier, a shortcut to understanding some of the vocabulary words. But I have to be careful not to project too much of my own experiences onto them, because that means I'm not listening. If I'm thinking too much about, oh, this is just like this thing I went through. Although there are some things that are similar enough that I can say, yeah, I've dealt with this with me. Let me tell you what helped me. Maybe it won't help, but it's worth trying. And like one example for that is with our youngest especially, dysphoria can go hand in hand with being self-critical of his body. And so, if I hear him criticize the way he looks, and instead of saying, oh no, buddy, you look great, I'm realizing, wait a minute, this is probably dysphoria in disguise. And I can say, all right, let's find something that's going to help you feel more masculine. And speaking of, I just want to pause for a moment and say, you're hearing from me because I'm the one on your show, but Lynn has been amazing. She has been the most amazing, supportive, awesome mama bear for these boys. And one of the many things that she's done for them, oh, that's where we got married all over again as wives. One of the many things that she's done for them is helps them find things that make them feel more masculine, including and especially clothing. She is an amazing stylist. She got me this dress just a couple of nights ago. Thank you, baby. And she has found clothing that makes them feel powerful, that makes them feel cool, that makes them feel masculine. And so oftentimes it's like, let's get a favorite outfit, let's go do something, or let's distract from it. So the coping techniques are still the same. Sometimes it's just about recognizing the signs and acting on, if we can, the underlying dysphoria rather than whatever the surface symptom is.
All right. Our next viewer submitted question is, did you ever suspect that your child could be transgender or gay before they came out to you? This this is sort of an interesting question here, but Angela, I think you touched on this a little bit at the start.
Yeah, I joke with her, and I'm like, I think you were the last person to know. I'm like, I think I knew before you, But I joke with her about that. But yes, I did. I was not surprised, not even the littlest bit, when she came out as trans. I just wasn't. It wasn't. I'm happy she came out when she did. I thought it was going to be later in life, but I'm happy she came out when she did. But no, I was not surprised. No.
All right. Erin, for your boys?
I didn't really suspect that they might be trans, although, again, talking about Tyler's uniform of basketball shorts and baggy shirts and flip-flops and hands jammed in his pockets and short hair, he kind of looked like Peppermint Patty. And we thought maybe as he grew older, maybe he would come out as gay. It didn't work out that way. And so in retrospect, looking at those same signs and going like, okay, yeah, he wanted more masculine presenting stuff for that reason, because he's trans, not because he's gay.
Can I
right.
just say just one thing?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Just one thing. I usually said something that reminded me. I remember, I think Lana was 3. And when she was 3, we used to use these bibs that were terry cloth, and you'd put them like around your neck and everything. And I remember her walking out in the living room one day, and she had taken that bib and she pulled it down around her waist. And I don't know why, but I had like this Home Depot flag, and she put it on her head. And she came out, and she had, I called it a bib skirt. She was flinging her bib skirt, and she was taking her Home Depot flag and making it her hair. And I was like, okay, all right, cool. I was like, we got this.
Of course, she's in the other room watching this right now, covering her face after hearing that story. So,
Yes.
all right. I think we have one more pre-submitted question here. And this is an important one. What advice would you give to a parent who's having a hard time adjusting? And Angela, why don't we start with you?
So I think it goes back to kind of what I said before. Of course, there's going to be an adjustment period. Your child is still your child. They are still the same person on the inside. You're not losing anybody. You're gaining a happier child. They are able to live and speak their truth, and just listen to them. You don't have to have the answers for them, but you really need to listen and be there and help them in any way. And it's okay to cry. It's okay to go in your room and cry. It's okay to get, I don't mean frustrated at your child, but there were times that I cried because I just felt terrible for her. I don't want her to be sad. I didn't want her to be sad. It's okay. But like she says, you can't unpack and live there. You have to be there for your children. You have to speak up for your children. You have to be advocates for your children. You have to be mama bear, daddy bear. You need to be there because they need you. They trust you. You know, one of the things I say is when you have a new baby come into the family, you always say, I just want a healthy and happy child. That's all that I want. That's all I want. It doesn't change. That never changes. It doesn't change the moment they come out to you. It doesn't change. You still want a healthy and happy child.
Beautifully said. Erin, your thoughts on the same question?
Everything you just said. Also, believe your kids, right? When they come out to you, don't doubt them. Don't say, "Oh, really?" Believe them and do your best to understand what they're saying and advocate for them. Show up for the appointments. Get the pronouns right. And I want to talk a little bit more about belief briefly. A lot of us, our understanding of our gender deepens over time. It actually happened with all 3 of us, right? All 3 of us went through a time when we weren't sure where we would land. All 3 of us went for a time when we used a non-binary gender identity because that represented our best understanding at the time. And there are other parents whose children don't jump right away and say, I know I'm a girl, or I know I'm a boy. And the child, I just want you to know that if your child does come to you with a newer set of pronouns or a more refined idea about their identity, all of the identities they've used leading up to that point are valid too, right? They're doing their best with the information they have, and they do a lot of introspection and they get new information and their understanding deepens. So as parents, yes, you may feel like a little whiplash if they're changing them again within a space of, I don't know, a few months or something like that. This too can be part of the process. So again, just take those feelings, find people to vent them to who are not your children.
Great. Wow. Perfect. I mean, wonderful answers from both of you. Thank you so much for those. I would like to bring Addison on with us here and check in to see how our chat is going tonight. How are we looking over there, Addison?
Looking good. So we had one question in the chat. This is from Tommy, and this is specifically for Erin. The question is, what was it like having 3 people transition in one household? Did each person's individual needs step on each other? Were they complementary? What would you say about that?
I'd say with the boys, the needs were complementary. It really helped our youngest to have an elder role model to look up to, not only having a trans brother, but just having an older brother, period. And I think that especially became important to him as he no longer had someone he could think of as a paternal role model. That was perhaps a sense of loss for him. Although I will say this, before transition, he observed me opening doors for Lynn. I mean, I still do that, but he noticed it beforehand, and he's just become the most perfect little door opener gentleman. Like, neither of us are allowed to open a door. We go out somewhere in public. So anyway, role models. I think having each other to turn to as both transmasculine people has been the biggest advantage of having multiple trans people under the house. And the other just being that sometimes the three of us can sit down and go, you know what, this thing that we're going through, here's this angle on it that's biting us all today. Let's talk about it.
Okay, and that was it for questions from the chat. Back to you guys.
All right. So if we don't have any other questions there's nothing on Facebook. I think we're at the end here, but I just want to allow you both just kind of a minute here to reflect on today's conversation. Let me start here for just a moment. This is wonderful to see supportive parents out there supporting their trans kids. I look up to both of you so much. I really wonder, what would have happened if in the 90s when I was growing up, there was more information available out there, for me personally and for my parents. But I never even talked about it with my parents because I didn't have the words to even describe what it was at the time. But it's beautiful what you two have done. And, you two are fantastic. So thank you for being amazing parents for your kiddos. And thank Lynn, too.
Thank you.
All right, Erin, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really grateful for this resource that you've put together. Just like Angela said earlier, one reason we're both here tonight is we hope other parents hear this and can come to us. And that's what your show does, right? It brings people together who have some facet of being transgender or being close to transgender people in common so that nobody has to face this alone, I hope. So thank you for having us on, and more generally for providing this amazing show. And thank you to Addison, the same reason.
All right, Angela.
All right. First, I want to apologize because I think the cleaning people are vacuuming outside, so it's good they were wrapping this up. I just heard it, but no, I wanted to just say thank you. And if there are any parents out there, I have had parents in the past, send me messages. Hey, did you ever feel this way? Or I've had people tell me it's so great to see a parent supporting their child. And I started my page because in the very beginning, Lana did not want to tell anyone. She was still trying to find her footing, and I needed something. I needed someone, and I couldn't tell a soul. And so I needed somewhere to go. And I did not want, like Erin said, my child is not my counselor. And I wanted questions answered, and I wanted questions answered, and I wanted to ask people things. And I'm very fortunate and very happy for everyone that I've met through this, especially you and Erin now and Addison. And I just want to say, support your kids. Like Erin said, believe them and just love them. Love them. It's hard enough in this world being a kid. Just love them.
So true. All right. I would like to take a few seconds to talk about next week's episode. Next week, we will have Allie Keeler joining us, and we're going to be talking about something that I need to be better about, fitness and exercise. So she'll be sharing some of her own journey, discovering her identity, and we're also going to talk about taking better care of our bodies while we navigate transition. Maybe she can finally get me on a good workout schedule. We'll see how it goes next week. I hope that everyone out there joins us. This has been a fantastic call here this week. I'd like to get all four of us back up on screen here as we sort of wrap things up. But thanks again so much to the moms here, and for all the other moms out there who are watching and are wondering, and moms and dads out there who are watching and wondering, how they can better support their kids. I really hope that this resource is something beneficial to them. And of course, you saw our Instagram handles. We're very open. We want to answer your questions. If you ever have any questions, reach out to any of us online or on our Instagram page at transirl. So from everyone here, I'd like to say thanks once again, and we'll see you next week.